Hey everybody, James Wilson and Jeff Sutherland here in the house today, and we're excited because you just passed your real estate test.
Well, not really. I mean, I passed that years ago.
No, you passed your real estate test.
Oh, yeah. You. Yeah, they did.
So today we're talking about what is next. You got excited. You just got told that you're actually able to get licensed with your respective state to sell real estate. You're probably pretty excited. So what are the next steps, James? What do they do?
Well, again, just to back it up just a second now, when we say you just got the license, I mean, if you've been doing what we've asked you to do, what we've recommended, you've already gotten your fingerprints and started your background checks. And so that can take anywhere from, say, 2 weeks to, say, 12 weeks. So if you've already done that as you were going through real estate class, then you're a little bit better off than I think the average Joe, so to speak.
That's right. And some states really get backed up in that process. That's why we say start the fingerprint process early because it might take several weeks.
Yeah. So if you've gone down to the testing center, which these are typically third-party testing centers, Prometric and a couple other companies around the country, you've passed the state portion, you've passed the national portion, you got a big, hey, I passed. You put that together with an application, and now you're ready to go down to the Department of Real Estate for your state, write out a check, pay some money, turn in your background check, your fingerprint card, your application, and write your check.
Wow.
And wait.
Yes. So are you ready to sell real estate at that point yet?
No.
No. Oh,
No.
Okay.
Hurry up and wait is what we learned in the military.
Yeah. So as you're hurrying up and waiting, what are some things that we got to start thinking about?
Well, I think you got to start thinking about like 1,000 things.
Yeah.
Namely, where am I going to work? Like, what kind of realtor am I going to be?
Yeah. You mean just real estate isn't just a bunch of residential real estate? There's other kinds.
Yeah. So we haven't really talked about this, but yeah, there's all types of real estate related activities where you can actually have representation as a fiduciary. Some states will let you be an actual transaction or functionary. We happen to work in a state where we're fiduciary only.
Yeah. And today, in this segment, we're going to focus on 5 major segments of the real estate industry that we think are pretty prevalent. We have some stories to share around all 5 of those things.
At least 5.
Yeah, at least.
Right?
Yeah, the first one's a real fun one. You've been to these probably, and you probably walked out with a free gift, or maybe even more. You maybe purchased a timeshare.
Okay, yeah, so let's talk about that. So you can be a licensed real estate agent, and you can work in the segment of real estate known as timeshare, time shifting. I remember when I first heard about timeshare, I was pretty young. I was in my like, I think I was 18 or 19 years old, before I was 20. I was in the military. I got this offer to come down and get a free camera and go down to the pizzeria and listen to this presentation. And I had no clue at 18 and a half what they were talking about.
Yep, that's right. And my thought whenever I go into a timeshare experience is it feels a little bit more high pressure. So if you're to get into that type of environment, you're probably going to be closing people a little bit more aggressively. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, I think if we're thinking about real estate as a salesperson and as a sales professional, I think of timeshare as a far on one edge of you're a hardcore closer, you're a salesperson, and you're learning a bunch of closing techniques, scripting, and really controlling that conversation.
Yeah, and it's one property, but it's fractional interest with several parties, right? Several parties own the property. Is that how it works, James?
Yeah, explain that fraction. You get into math on me, so you lost half of us.
Yeah,
what's that about?
It's you own a little piece of that property, meaning that, well, you have access to it certain times of the year.
Oh.
So there's various people that use it.
So when you say fractional interest and you own a piece of it, I'm thinking I own, a quarter of the title, like 25% ownership? And you're not talking about that. You're talking about what I'm really paying for is, say, a week of ownership.
Maybe 2.
Maybe if I'm really rich, 2 weeks of ownership.
Yes, and a beautiful destination.
Now, I got to tell you guys, if you're passionate for sales, you love talking to strangers, you love that type of, rah-rah coaching. If you're like Wolf of Wall Street kind of salesperson, timeshare could be your gig. I mean, it could be a lot of fun, I think. I've never done it personally. I worked in a similar type of a scenario. I actually worked for 2 different companies on the fringe. Let me tell you about it real quick.
Yep.
One of the companies I work for is local here in our state, and they're the only company that will let you trade your timeshare toward a cruise.
Yes.
The only company that does that. And the owners that started the company wanted to do that. They had this timeshare. They wanted to go on they bid timeshare. And they said, you know what? We think we want to go on a cruise. So they tried to do that. And they were like, you can't do that. And they're like, what are you talking about? I paid for all this. Why can't I use it how I want? And they're like, because we're not a cruise ship. And they go, okay, well, we're going to figure out how to make that happen. They start a whole company around it. They're the only company that does that. So a bunch of people that worked there had come from timeshare because it was a sister kind of sales thing. And then the other opportunity that I worked at was I worked for an appointment setting company that front-loaded people into the seats for the timeshare presentation.
Oh, okay.
And so this is where people like go to wedding shows and they fill out registrations for a free weekend in Vegas. And what they don't realize is you're going to be staying at a timeshare resort spot, and in exchange for your free weekend, you're going to listen to their 3 to 4 hour or 10-hour presentation.
That's right. And if you're really good at timeshares, let's face it, you can be very financially successful in timeshares. You can make some very good money. Now, there is a caveat to that, and you have to kind of pay attention to seasonal things in the economy, too. There's times in our economy where people kind of regress and they don't want to really spend a lot of money on vacations. So we've seen that, especially in 2020. We've seen people that have actually not wanted to go out and buy a lot of timeshares because of what's happening in the economy. So you have to kind of pay attention to what's happening in the macro economy because that does affect timeshares.
Yeah, but again, the exciting thing for me is if you like, let's say, the movie Boiler Room, or if you like The Wolf of Wall Street, or you're a salesperson, like that's your passionate about sales, I think that's something you should check into.
Totally agree. So that's timeshares.
Yep, that's timeshare.
Now we get into another one that I'm really fond of. This is new home construction, new homes. And that's where I started my career, actually, with the national home builder. And we love talking about new homes. As residential realtors, we also get to sell new homes as well. So you get to actually take clients into new homes, not just resell homes, which is exciting. And so let's talk a little bit about new homes. Little different situation. They're paid typically on a W-2 versus a residential resale agent, which is typically paid 1099. Two different streams of income there.
Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit in a previous episode, but there is a difference. And new home sales, I loved new home sales when I sold new homes. Mm-hmm. I had such a great time. I learned so much about the construction process. What was your experience?
I absolutely love selling new homes. I started back in 2002, and at that time, we could sell as many homes as we wanted to on a weekend. As the evolution of the new home industry has evolved, now it's to the point where you can only sell so many homes at one time because they have even flow production. There's only so much that the tradesmen can do to construct homes. So you can sell an allotment every weekend as the land is released to the home buyer.
Okay, so that production gets in the way, the little wrench in the machine of you selling like 40 homes this weekend because the contractor says, whoa, I can only build like 4 homes a month, so slow your roll, bro.
Yep, that's right, slow your roll. And typically with new home sales, you're going to work every weekend. Those are the main working hours because that's when people come out and look at homes. A typical work week for a new home salesperson will be working 5 days a week, and that would include the weekend, but you also get a couple days off during the week. So that's a little bit different than a resale agent, if you will, and that is a very different thing because you're very autonomous. You can pretty much work whenever you want to.
Yeah, new home sales can be a lot of fun. I worked for I'll say remote location, meaning it was 80 miles from my home. That was one way. So I was 3 hours a day on the road, which was great if you like audiobooks and you're into that kind of thing. However, what I intentionally wanted to work at that location specifically because the new build model homes were right adjacent to the design center. And I wanted to get a bunch of experience in designing and upgrading and understanding all the nuances and what does a designer do when they go into spec the details of a home. And so I learned so much information, and I also understood now the construction side of it because we would do a weekly construction meeting with a construction manager, the project managers. They'd go over delivery times. They'd talk about where we were in the different phases of construction. I so enjoyed my time there, but it can have its ups and flows with the economy as well.
That's right.
Because depending on, again, now we had wood shortages, and so that slows production. We had, you have to order cabinets like 90 days minimum, sometimes 180 days in advance.
Yeah. And here's the big pro and con I see in new home sales. The pro is that if you go into a hot community, something that the consumer really loves, a really good area, you're doing great, and the leads will flow in like butter. You don't have to go out there and actually have to drum up business. Now, that's the pro if you're in a great community. And oftentimes you get put in a community on the front end where there's tons of land. You get hundreds and hundreds of lots you can sell, which is wonderful. But the con is sometimes you get put in bad projects. You get put in a community that's not very desirable. It could be in a remote area. You have very little traffic coming in, so you have to try everything you can to generate traffic in addition to what the company's giving you. So you have to really kind of ask, where am I going to be placed as a new home agent? Really important.
Yeah, when I was in real estate school in 2000, and I finished in 2001, the thing about it was that everybody in class was talking about, hey, if you just get into new home sales, you're going to make a minimum of $100,000 a year, because you're sitting basically, if you're in a production builder, you're sitting in basically a model home where they've converted the garage into your office.
Yep.
You have a partner and you're alternating some days off. I remember I was off Monday, Tuesday, and it was kind of nice to be off during the week. But again, every weekend, every holiday, I was out there working it. And it was great when we had lots released and when we had things available. Our community was smoking hot. The homes were selling right. As a matter of fact, it's good and bad. We sold so many homes that we had to kind of stop because they couldn't build anymore because we ran out of approved lots from the state. So we had to go to a reservation system, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And there are definitely some cons to it, but I don't think I would have traded it, that experience.
Yeah.
Again, just getting my license, that's what I was told. Go get in new homes. Go get in new homes. You'll make a ton of money, which was great.
Yeah.
And then when we sold out of approved lots, and then we had to take reservations, then I learned the cons.
Yes.
And the cons are fine. They're not that big a deal. I had money coming in, but we can only take reservations. You'll learn how that works if you go into new home sales. It's fully refundable deposits. But the other thing about it is if the consumer does not like any of the floor plans you have available, what happens is these new home subdivisions typically are not alone. They're clustered with 4, 5, 10 other builders.
Yeah.
Because that's the available land for development.
Yep.
So they're going to come to your homes and look at your homes, and they say, well, I don't like those floor plans. They're going to go to the next new home seller and the next new home seller until they find the floor plan they like.
Yep. Let me tell you a quick story, James. So 2002, I just left a Fortune 500 company. I had a great career. I ended up leaving that company to go into real estate. My first interview was with a national home builder. I had 30 people in the room interviewing at the same time. It was a group interview. So they said, Jeff, how come you want to come work for our company? And I stood up and I said, well, I just quit a Fortune 500 company, and next year at this time, I'll be your #1 agent.
Whoa.
I stood up and said that, James.
Yeah.
And everybody laughed at me.
Right.
I'll never forget
All
it.
the other applicants laughed.
They laughed.
Yeah.
They laughed. Even the panel chuckled.
The panel.
Even the panel.
Okay.
And so a year later, I was #1 on the sales board at that company, and I was promoted to be a regional sales manager. So I want to tell you one of the things I learned in that year, which goes back to a possible con when you think about real estate and new homes, is when you start at a community, you start selling, right? Yeah. Well, there's a build time. It takes anywhere from 4 to 6 to 8 months, depending on the house.
Yeah, I just came back from some new builds this week. Friday, I registered some people, and it's a 9-month build.
Right. So guess what happens to your pay during that time? You get typically paid what's called a draw in new home sales. So you get paid a little bit of money for expenses at your house and living, but it's not a very big check. So typically when the closings start to come and you start to make commission, which is a ways down the road, then they decrement that draw off of your commissions.
Okay.
And so you're not living on a lot for a while. So you have to be very disciplined with your money because it takes a while to get paid at first. Once the closings start coming in, then it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And so new home sales can be a blast, can be a lot of fun. Do some research. Not all builders are the same. They don't all have the same quality of construction. Some of their architecture is a little unique and different. As well as with new home sales, we're talking residential new home sales. There's certainly, condos that are conversions and some other things, new construction in the apartment space. If you're in the big city, they're all things, but it comes down to the builder. And these builders, by the way, guys, just want to mention this. You need a real estate license, but you don't need to be a realtor. You are a licensee, but you're not necessarily a member of the National Association of Realtors. You are an agent under a broker. Your broker is a broker for that builder. They're required to supervise your paperwork.
That's right.
Which most builders use their own paperwork, and they have their own contracts people. So all you're doing is really selling, kind of customer service, and getting a check, which can be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So if you have questions between new homes and residential, James and I, we've done them both. So just ask us away. Let's go to the next one. Let's talk about commercial real estate. Now that's a whole different animal, right, James?
Yeah. Commercial is a total different space, because when I think of commercial, I think of something they mentioned, like 2 sentences maybe. I mean, they mentioned it in real estate school, which is called highest and best use. And that has to do with utilization of the land. What is, from a planning perspective, what is the highest and best usage of a particular piece of land? Maybe it's an airport.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an apartment building. Maybe it's a mall, which I don't know if we're going to have malls anymore nowadays. But
right.
But highest and best use is what I think of. What about you? What's commercial for you?
When I think of commercial, I think of longer sales cycles.
Yeah,
we're residential agents, so a sales cycle, once you get under contract, typically 30 to 45 days. So you can get sales quicker. In commercial, typically the commissions are bigger. You're dealing with larger pieces of projects, but that cycle is much longer. There's letter of intents, there's due diligence, there's many more people involved typically. So it's typically a little bit more numbers oriented, I would say, in general, versus emotionally driven as a homeowner.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's typically, again, the return on the investment. What's capitalization rate? What's my ratio of down payment to income? These are the things we're talking about.
Yeah, and sometimes commercial and residential kind of flow together. Sometimes they don't. We're in today's economy, the commercial sector is definitely in question because of people moving into their homes to work online. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with commercial.
Yeah, and understand this. Wherever you're working today, if you have a job and you're not working from home, but you actually go to an office, that's commercial real estate. That is a piece of property that someone owns as an investment, and they collect rental income on that property. In many ways, it's like owning a business where you're making sales. It's just the sales are coming in the form of leases and rents.
That's right.
So there is profitability and whole equations around commercial as a business. And it's a great career for people that, again, they have a longer sales cycle, they can make a lot more income, and they can make no income like every one of these.
That's right, and there's commercial sales and there's commercial leasing.
For sure.
There's a lot of different types of commercial, and there's also different types of companies in commercial. You can work for a broker that actually does residential real estate and commercial, or you can go work for a big commercial house. These bigger companies are typically companies that provide more leads, and the splits are a little bit less if you work for a bigger company, but there's possibly leads coming from the company. So again, you have to be very smart in terms of who you hang your brokers or who you hang your commercial license with in terms of a company.
Yeah, and I think something to think about, we just want to point it out here. It's the same license, guys.
Same license.
It's the same exact license. So at this point, you got kind of thinking, do I take the commercial real estate track or do I go the residential track? That's kind of a fork in the road, so to speak, because within commercial, there's all kind of subsets. You're almost always going to have some form of either property management, leasing, or even land development. So there's a bunch of little subsections in commercial. There's working with paper and third-party paper, and how do you cover financing and all those kind of multi-deal. Like let's say McDonald's. Many of you probably think they're in the franchise business or they're in the fast food business. They're actually in the real estate business.
That's right.
So it's a different animal. So you're going to find that commercial agents and residential agents are both same license. However, it's kind of separate. And for that reason, a lot of companies separate that out. I know even at our company, we have commercial is almost it's a separate company. Right. And then residential is a separate portion of the company. So it can be really lucrative for sure, but it's something to investigate.
Yeah, and the other thing I've learned over the years, I've been told this many times, it's a little bit harder to break into that world in commercial because a lot of people have long-standing relationships that are commercial agents with in the community with businesses. A little bit tougher versus in residential real estate, it's one-on-one. The blocking and tackling occurs at the household level.
Yeah, I think a commercial also kind of like Wall Street in many ways. Commercial agents are working with accountants, CPAs, attorneys, investment bankers, because that's the space they play in, and they're they're working in a white collar world. It's kind of Monday through Friday, it's 8 to 5, and then it's hustling all the other time.
Yep. Great job. So let's move on. Let's move on to residential.
Residential.
That's our bread and butter.
That's it.
So yeah, we've been doing this a while. What are your first thoughts about residential, James?
I love residential when I learned that even though everyone was telling me, go get your license and get into new home sales, I was asking my instructors, hey, so tell me about new home sales. And here's what my instructor said. I so appreciated what he said. He goes, look, if you're in resale, you have all options. Meaning, if you have a client that wants to go to a new build, you can go and register them and represent them on a new home construction.
That's right.
And if they want resale, you can take them to see resale homes. However, when you are a new home construction agent, you are limited to the inventory available by the builder. And I was like, oh, big aha, that makes sense.
Absolutely. And not only that, a lot of agents that come into this business don't realize that we can get paid on any transaction that happens in the company all over the country.
Right.
Or from any other agent anywhere in the country, because we have this thing called referral fees.
Oh my gosh, when I figured this out, it was licensed to print money.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh. I had just come from running the call center at Realtor.com. And I was used to, again, I was so responsible for all the problems. And I had like no authority to fix anything. And I was so frustrated. And I got paid the same.
Yeah.
Every 2 weeks I get the same check. And when I got into residential real estate and I found out I could get paid showing a rental and doing a lease, I could get paid referring a customer to list a home for sale in another state. I can get paid a referral on a buyer in a different state. I get paid from someone out of the country from a realtor in another country, and I could go help sellers, and I could help buy. I was blown away by that thing. I was like, I got a license to print money.
That's right. And James, let me ask you, are we just really realtors? Are we also counselors?
Oh my gosh.
Therapists? Encouragers. What are all the different roles that a residential real estate agent plays?
You know, it's a great question, and I gotta say, in many ways, it's a ministry.
Yeah,
because it so encompasses the whole family.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be adequate to say counselor or therapist or accountant or bookkeeper. That's why I think of it as a ministry, because we're touching people's lives at the real core level. Because it's not just the mom and dad, but it's the generation of kids that grow up in the home, feeling safe and secure. It's the grandparents and parents in a flex space where they come and live multi-generationally. And there's so much to it.
Yep. A couple pros and cons I always think of when it comes to residential. One pro would be there's no ceiling of income. I kind of like that. Every day I wake up and I know I can go make a raise. I can make a raise for myself versus being in a corporate job where I can work my butt off, but I'm not going to make any more money in that year. So I can make a raise. The second one I talk about is with residential resale is that the con would be is that there's a lot of competition. I mean, if you look at our state that we're in, there's a lot of licensees. And sometimes, honestly, James, I wish it was a little bit harder to become a realtor in our world because we have a lot of competition.
Yeah, I would say my perspective is we have a lot of other fish in the sea. I wouldn't say necessarily competition because of the way I've learned to market and position myself, but I definitely understand the context of what you're saying. And at the same time, the other con is there's freaking people involved, yo.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not always just my client, right? I've got clients on the other side of the transaction. I've got a lender involved. I've got a title company involved. I've got an escrow person involved. Yeah. I've got a home inspector involved. I've got a bank appraiser involved. And all these people getting in the way of my money.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the ex-wife calling all the time. You know, what the hell?
Well, I'll tell you what, man. If you like a job where there's a lot of diversity every day.
There you go. A lot of diversity.
I mean, we hit on everything. James just hit on all these things that we do. I think last time I checked, there's like 250 tasks that a realtor does when they do a deal with a client. It's like
there are
people
hundreds
have no
of tasks.
idea all the things that we have to do to make a deal work. So if you like change, if you like doing different things every day and dealing with a lot of different people, man, this is the career for you.
Yeah, for sure. And with residential, for me, the key differentiator was really I got to work with sellers for the first time. Because in new home sales, I was only working buyers and no sellers. So in residential resale, I got my shot now to go out and hunt down listing business where I can really go out and take as many listings and inventory as I can, get the sign in the yard, start generating some marketing and activity, and then I'm really out hunting for all the rest of the buyer's agents.
Yeah. And unlike new homes or unlike maybe even a commercial situation, our brand is really important as a residential.
It for sure can be so important because if you're the gold jacket company, and you've got a long history, or you're the red, white, and blue balloon company.
Yep.
I mean, whatever, you're the red company, you're the gold company. Whatever it is, each one of them have a brand awareness in the marketplace. Or if you're a boutique, if you're James and Jeff Realty, right? If you're just a boutique company, you may have no name recognition, no brand, you have no track record. So these are all things to consider as you're going to go out and figure out, where am I going to work?
Yeah, and marketing is very important. If you like to market yourself, again, this is a great career to do. I mean, back in the day, maybe 50 years ago, people typically gravitated more to institutional companies, bigger companies with big brand names. Now, in the modern day of real estate, the agent's brand is really paramount. It's really important. And you could be working for just about any company, but if you have a great individual brand, people remember you, and they do business because of who you are and your character and what you bring to the table.
Yeah, for sure. People like you and trust you, or they don't.
Yeah.
Regardless of the brand. Like, you can have a great brand as a brokerage that you're working for, but if you have terrible people skills, if you're not likable, if we like to say, if you're not a samurai and do what you say,
That's right.
if you're not full of honor and integrity and commitment, you're going to struggle in this business. But thinking about residential, I think it gives you the best flexibility to create income, because I can license to print money.
Yep, and so talk to us about residential. We can tell you everything you need to know about that. And the last one is the leasing agent. These people, when you go in and you want to rent an apartment, you meet these leasing agents.
Yeah, leasing or property management for residential. Like, you have a home, you just moved here from another state, and you don't want to buy yet because you're not sure if you're going to like the job or you're going to like the schools or the weather, so you want to rent.
Yep, and there's two things there. With the leasing agent, those are typically people that actually help lease property at communities, and then you have people that actually manage the properties, right? The property managers, and we know people that manage 100, 200 households of rentals for clients, and they help administer the repairs and the billing and all that. So it's somewhat administrative. Tell us about that, James.
I worked. I'm going to tell you. So my very first spot was a property management company.
Really?
Very first job in real estate. Residential real estate was a property management company, and they did property management and leasing. And I'm cutting my teeth on leasing. And what I found out about that business was so mind-blowing. Again, I'm like licensed to print money, but what I found was renters could only go look in the evening and on the weekends, and the property managers and the leasing agents, they want to be off at night and on the weekend.
Yeah.
So they're in conflict with each other.
Yeah.
So I love to hustle. So I would go see the property manager on call for the night, and I'd go get the pager. That's how long ago it was. They had a pager back then.
Wow.
And I'd say, hey, I'll be happy to take over your pager tonight. So they say, yeah, come see me at 4 o'clock today, because they get off at 5, and you can take the pager. And I took all the calls every night from 4 at night until 8 in the morning when I gave him back the pager. And then I took them all weekend. And the property managers and leasing agents loved me. And I was renting 4 or 5 properties a week.
Wow.
And I was making $1,000, $1,200 a week. $400 to $4,500 a month. Everybody else I knew that went into real estate was starving to death. They were door knocking and trying to get a listing. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? You're not making $1,000 a week. What are you doing wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, perfect example. Perfect. So here's the other one. Let's say I'm a renter. Okay, and you're my landlord. Okay. You're renting a house to me.
Sure.
And you don't want to deal with me when I have a problem in the house.
That's for sure.
Right? So when I have a problem and the sink clogs or whatever, I'm not calling James. I'm calling this guy, this property manager guy. So in order to not have to deal with that, James will pay that property manager some money every month, and that property manager gets to deal with my problems as the renter. That's how it works, right, James?
Well,
Kinda.
I mean, the reality is, you're not calling anybody. You're leaving a voicemail on a mailbox, and they may call you back in a week. That's really what's going on. But yeah, that's the nuts and bolts of it. I mean, the property manager is there as a friction point because the owner doesn't want to deal with it. The owner is like working their job in another state. They decide to buy a rental home in your state or downtown or whatever, and they don't want the call for the hot water heater that broke or the house got flooded or, God forbid, the air conditioner stopped working where we live in the country.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what the property manager has to do. It's really a nightmare of a headache job.
Yeah.
Everybody is mad. And so when I started in that job, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? This is like the call center. Everybody's pissed off all the time. The renters are mad, stuff is broken. The owners are mad, they got to fix the broken stuff. I'm mad because I can't get anybody from the warranty company to come do the work they've already been paid to do. And then when they do it, they do a terrible job. So now the tenant's still mad because the quality is crap. Everybody's mad all the time. It's amazing business.
It's a great job. Sign me up. So if you like handling complaints,
oh
you're
my
really
gosh,
good at it.
if you're a customer service expert, that's an opportunity for you.
And it can be a very successful career, you know? So wow, that was a good explanation.
Yeah,
So,
and I would say this too. You may love customer service. There are no good property managers from my experience. Now, there's some that are better than others, and I just think of them as kind of the tallest midget in the room. Everybody's pretty low level. Nobody does a good job. There's some that do a pretty good job. And I personally know people that own large property management companies. Like, I worked at one that had 300 homes in management, and they built it up to 900 homes in management. Wow. Explosive growth.
Yeah.
But those growing pains can show up in other areas. And so it can be a rewarding, it can be very lucrative for the owner of the property management company. There's some very cool things you can do in property management. So come to our future episodes. I'll tell you some of those.
Yeah, so we went over 5 big areas today, and now you're getting to the point where you're like, okay, I think I've narrowed it down on what I want to do. So we're going to start talking about how do you pick where you're going to go work next, right, James?
Yeah. What do you do? You listen to those different segments. How are you going to go pick it?
Yeah. All right. Stay tuned for our next episode.